one that I downloaded, I did rename. So this is it here. And you can rename your pipeline that you download from our marketplace by clicking on the title. So once you click on the title, you can start manipulating the pipeline. So I named it number 1 just because I wanted to be on the top of the list. It is alphabetical, so all of your pipelines are listed alphabetically. So that's why I numbered them, so I can have the one that I want at the very top. All right, so once you download, notice again we are in the template view. When you click on pipeline in the workflow view, it's a little bit different. So let's open this up so I can show you the difference. This view is called the Kanban view. So this means that we can see jobs that are active on each stage. If we remember at the very, very beginning, we did a quick demo of adding a job, and that job was the little job card sitting here, and it moved from space to space as we moved forward with the workflow, right? So this is a view that most likely you want to stick to so you can see what's happening with your clients. You can look at the list of jobs, but looking at this view just makes it so much easier to visibly see what stage your client is on. Right? At least for me, I am a visual learner. I am a visual person, but if you are the kind of person that likes to look at lists, by all means, but this view is just going to be so much easier to manage, especially because you will have all your clients visible here. You can have 10 clients on a pipeline or 1,000. The nice thing about that is we can always filter our views so we can hyper focus on a client, on something that's assigned to one of our team members, a certain date that you added, a certain tag that you want to look up, right? So our filters are going to be really, really useful. All right, so I'll pause here just to see if there's any questions. I don't want to move too fast because this is important to understand.
We do have questions about the statuses and how to change them. But at first I want to touch on, so the numbers here at the very top under each stage name is how many actions are related to each stage. If you click on them, it should tell you what is going on for, or what automations you have set up for each stage.
Right, exactly. And notice this one doesn't have, it's kind of grayed out because there's no actions here. We'll go ahead and add an action in a second. But you're absolutely right. These little lightning bolts mean that something's going to happen here, and you get to program that. You get to modify what happens in each stage or what doesn't happen in each stage, right? So, and somebody asked also, does the calendar show up? Show upcoming job recurrences? It doesn't because they haven't been generated yet. When you want to look up what's upcoming, you want to go to the recurrences tab for that. But that's a really good question. All right. So we'll talk a little bit more about job statuses and once we get actually editing the pipeline. So in the meantime, I want to get to, describe this view so everybody is really familiar, because a lot of clients are like, what's the difference between this view and the other one? This view, again, clients are going to be on here. We'll add a job a little bit later. And then when you click on edit, this is the view where you get to edit what's going on in each stage. So if I click on the first stage, I have a proposal that needs to be sent out. But if I need to add maybe a welcome email to be sent to everybody, you're going to click on something called Add Automation. Okay. And you can browse through this if you actually have this open on your end right now, if you're watching us live. Click on this so you can start exploring what kind of actions you can generate in your pipeline. So I want to tell you which actions will trigger a move to the next stage and which ones will not. Okay. First of all, you need to make sure that this toggle called auto move is on for all of your stages. if you wish for this to automatically move from one stage to another after an action is completed. So I'll repeat that again. The auto move toggle below each stage needs to be on if you want the auto move to function after an action is completed. So after an action is completed, what do you mean by that? It means that if I have something actionable that is required to be completed by a client or you as a firm, that will trigger a move to the next stage. Okay. Again, if there's an actionable item here that your client needs to complete, like signing a document, completing an organizer, right? Those types of actions that need to be completed. Your client literally needs to click on submit or complete. That will trigger a move to the next stage. Now, if there's several actions that need to be completed, all of them need to be completed before moving to the next stage. So if you required your client to send you some sort of document and you also required them to sign a proposal, both of them need to be fulfilled. And that's how the auto move will be triggered. So just as a reminder for that. Okay, so now that we have, a proposal here, and I'll show you how we got here in the first place, because you might be looking at something like this. So, and if not, you might be looking at something like this. So you're just going to click on add automation, right? And let's do the organizer here. So add automation, and I'm going to add an organizer. And let's do, all right, let's do this organizer here. I'm going to click on save, and that's how you add an action into a pipeline. I want to click save again because that way I really make sure that the whole pipeline is updated. Right now, we only updated a stage. So always click on save whenever you get a chance. I added an organizer here. And if I want to add maybe a chat message just to announce to my client, hey, I sent you an organizer. If you need some help, let me know. I can always use, let's see, I'll use one of my demos. I'm just going to do a demo chat. But you want to predetermine this. And if you're like, well, I don't have a template for that, well, you can create it on the fly. All you have to do is click on new template. There will be a new tab that will open up, and that tab will take you directly for you to create a chat template, right? And you name it whatever you want. The message can be whatever you want. You can use short codes to identify the account so that your client sees that you're addressing their account. So on and so forth, right? If you want to add some documents, maybe a PDF document that they should absolutely have, perfect. This is what the templates are for you to tailor the information that your client needs to receive, right? So in this case, I'll do like number one, test. And this chat is coming from me. You can have it come from anybody in the team, but in specific, it's going to by default come from me. And this is a test. And again, this is just a test. If I do save and exit, there we go. So again, I saved my template, right? And I came back on this side. And when I do the drop down, notice that I have my test here. This is the one that I want to send. So we have a toggle here that you'll see for certain items, and it says set job assignee as sender. So when we create a job, we'll talk about assignees. So we're not going to worry about that right now. And we have these two options. Do I want to create a brand new thread or continue a thread that I already had with, my client? This is definitely up to you. If it's the very first time you're going to create a conversation with your client, I suggest you use a new thread. And this way your client sees this pertains to a tax return conversation, right? Versus a previous conversation that you had already had with that client. All right. So perfect. Now, this is an actionable item right here. Sending a message is not necessarily an actionable item. Just like an email, it's just a message, right? So when you send an email, that doesn't really trigger any completion. Your client doesn't have to go in and fill something out or sign something. So those are, passive automations or passive actions, and active actions would be something like, hey, sign this document, fill out this organizer, um, send me this client request information, or pay this invoice, things like that. Those are actionable items. So I'm going to keep repeating that because we need to understand that if on stage one I only want to send an email, that's not going to create any automation. So stage one needs to have something to trigger to move to stage two. And in this case, my proposal, once they sign it and submit it, it'll automatically move to stage two. I hope that's making a little bit of sense to everybody, because I know we do have a lot of questions. Any relevant questions, Katie, that you're looking at that we can answer?
People want to know again about job statuses. So if we could add that automation and show how to edit those and create new
Sure.
ones. And then we have another question about creating a pipeline from scratch.
Okay, perfect. So right now we're editing like a pre-made pipeline, right? With a lot of items. If I scroll to the right, let's scroll over. This is a basic tax, pipeline. So if you notice, there's quite a few stages, and these are already generated for you. You can delete them, rename them if they do not kind of fall within your protocol or your process. But they're nice to have so you can see more or less how to generate, a pipeline, how to modify it. Right. So we'll get to job statuses shortly. Don't worry about that. We'll get to them. I know everybody's eager to modify those, but that's when we start to generate jobs, right? When we generate a job, we'll get to modify job statuses. And job statuses settings can be found here. I'll cover them shortly. And so I'm going to hit save here. And I believe I have pretty much my first two stages ready to go. If I add somebody to stage one, they're going to get a notification letting them know that they need to fill out an engagement letter, right? If I want to send them another, maybe an email that gives them a little bit of a welcome, then perfect. I'll go ahead and do that. Everybody here is going to receive this because that's what, the stages are for. Anything that you modify and any client that goes, that sits on that stage will actually have these actions sent to them. Now, I want to introduce the topic of, getting tags, like how are tags going to be useful in pipelines, and how we can use, some of the conditions. Notice here that we have some stage conditions. So let's talk about that now that we understand how to create actions that trigger a move to the next stage, right? So let's say that this 2025 engagement letter, I want it to be sent only to my 1040s. Okay, and I'm going to add another proposal or engagement letter. And by the way, you can grab them and move them. The chronological order doesn't matter too much when it comes to the triggers. Okay, everything really happens at the same time. The reason why they're numbered is because we want to know how many actions there are in one stage, but usually they all happen simultaneously. So if I send an email and an engagement letter, usually that is sent at the same time. So I am going to send a slightly different proposal here, and I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to do this engagement letter, second one. I want this one to be for my 10, let me do 1120. So all my 1120 tags will receive this engagement letter. So I'm going to hit save on here. So I want this logic to come in through, and I think Katie, if you want to explain a little bit of how this is beneficial to a pipeline in a second, after I, showcase this, that would be great because you've worked with building out pipelines before with clients. So I want to get your perspective of how this is beneficial aside from my explanation, right? So again, I'm going to hit save here. And what does this mean? It means that if I add a client to stage number 1, right, my job hits stage 1, it doesn't mean that they're going to get 2 proposals. It means that if the account sitting on stage 1 has a tag that is 1040, they and only they will receive this specific engagement letter. If I add an account that has the 1120 tag on there, then only them will they receive this specific engagement letter. So this functions as a, more of a dynamic pipeline, which you can have more than one client type in in a workflow, which means all of your business, all your individuals can work through one pipeline because essentially they're the same process. It's just slightly different information that you need to provide to the client, right? So this would apply to stage 2. You can send an organizer for your 1040s and send an organizer for your 1120s. Everybody will get the chat message just to give them a heads up, and everybody will get an email. But specifically using these tags, I can tailor what information goes to what client. So yeah, any experience that you want to share with us about some of these use of tags, Katie?
One nice thing about the tags is you can, like you were just saying, you can use one pipeline for all of your different types of tax returns instead of having multiple pipelines that you're trying to keep track of, trying to follow along with, which can get really confusing. You are able to keep, excuse me, hold on. You're able to keep track of your different bookkeeping clients. You can keep one pipeline for bookkeeping, and you can put a tag for monthly or quarterly or anything like that. Even though you have the recurrence set up that way, it's helpful to be able to look at it and say like, oh, this one, this is when the recurrence happens, they're going to get this information because they're a monthly client, or this information because they're a quarterly client. And you can use these conditions throughout your entire pipeline. It doesn't have to be just in that first stage. You can set it so that a specific task is assigned to somebody for a 1040 return, or that 1120 return, or monthly bookkeeping, or weekly payroll versus monthly payroll. So they're really helpful in everything that's going on. You can set them for just about everything that is going on in your pipeline. And they're really helpful to just, at that glance, to see who's getting what at any given time. Tags in general are very helpful for keeping track of what's going on at any given time.
Exactly. And I This is where when I onboard clients, I let them know that they're gonna thank me to tag the accounts before we import. Because once you start looking at this logic, you're like, oh, that's neat. I can use that for, this specific scenario, right? So you can start brainstorming how you want tailored information going to certain tags and having them go through the same pipeline. So
You can also use that difficult tag that I talked about yesterday and have a completely different message go to those people where it's a little bit stricter and saying, I need this by this date, and have
yes.
it like a couple days before you actually need it, where other people you'd be like, so for them, you might say, I need it by June 1st, where everybody else, you might say, I need it by June 10th. Because you know that those difficult people aren't going to get it in by June 1st. They're not going to get it in until maybe June 5th or 6th. But at least they'll get it in by June 10th. So using tags like that can help you send the right message to the right types of clients.
Right. No, that's super, super helpful. That's a great tip. Thank you, Katie. Now, I want to show you that aside from conditioning one action or one item, you can condition a whole stage. So for example, if this organizer specifically for my 1040s, I can have a whole stage here specifically only for my 1040s. So only my 1040s will go through this stage. And if
Yes, a
they're not,
PETA tag. PETA tags are great. We
yeah,
love PETA tags.
if they're not, if they don't have this tag, they'll simply skip over to the next best stage, right? If they don't have the missing documents, tag, then they'll skip that as well. So I want to show you a little bit about, how we manage something like extensions. Notice that this specific pipeline has a couple of stage conditions. So if in the section called in prep, you determine that they need an extension or that they are missing information, this is a common use of tags, stage conditions. So if they do, once you hit complete on your task and you added the extension needed tag, they'll automatically jump from here to this stage. Because they weren't missing documents, they simply need an extension, right? So they'll automatically jump into the extension section. Notice that we have a task here. When that task is completed by one of your team members, whoever is assigned to, then it'll automatically go to the next section. So it'll jump to extension filed because look, if you take a look at this action, we can have the system automatically update a tag for you. So if somebody hits extension needed, the task is file their extension. Once that's done, automatically this will, change from extension file needed to extension filed, and it'll jump to this section. You don't have to have these stage conditions. It's just helpful to understand the logic so that in the future you can potentially use this for any of your services, right? If somebody needs to sit in extension filed for a couple of weeks, at least you know that this stage is specifically for them. Otherwise, if they're not missing anything or if they don't need extensions, after the prep, it'll jump all the way to manager review. There's no stage conditions here. This is for everyone, right? So usually the next kind of steps here are for you to modify what actions need to come first, or if something up here doesn't make sense to you, all you have to do is delete it if you're using a template. Somebody asked, how can we build a pipeline from scratch? You're going to click on new pipeline up at the top, and I'll demo that again. When you click on templates, you click on pipelines, you click on new pipeline, and this is it. This is how you will start your pipeline. So if you toggle on auto move here, it'll automatically add another stage because our very last stage cannot have an auto move. It doesn't have anywhere to go to, right? So if you want your first stage here, all you have to do is name it and then name your pipeline, right? Whether it's bookkeeping or quarterly bookkeeping or payrolling, whatever it might be, you're going to name it up here. So I'm using, for the sake of showcasing the actions, I'm using a pre-made pipeline so you can know how to edit that. But it's the same thing actually. If you use something from scratch, if you already know your process, meaning I know what I'm going to do first. I know I'm going to send an organizer. Then I know I need to review it and I need to file it, e-file it, and then invoice the client. Then add these stages and name them accordingly. This is the organizer, and this is my prep, and this is my e-file. And if I need any signatures before that, then I probably want a stage for invoice and signatures. So this is how you build a pipeline. I usually tell my clients, brainstorm your process first. What does your process look like now? You can, literally on a scratch piece of paper, say stage one, I want to send out an email. I want an engagement letter to be signed. I want an organizer to be filled out for the bookkeeping team. I want a specific set of instructions to be sent out to the client. So I'm going to send them chat, a chat conversation, and have them upload some stuff to me directly through the chat. Whatever you feel is adequate for your process, start by naming the stages. Sometimes you might not have any actions. You just want a client to sit on a stage and you want to manually drag and drop their job from one stage to another. That's also a possibility. That's not a problem. But the magic of TaxDome is all of these amazing auto move features that you can utilize. But it definitely up to you how you want to manage that. So really easy to do in creating something from scratch. And then you want to start your automation here. Like, what do you want to do first? Do you want to send an organizer? Do you want to send that engagement letter? Do you want to apply a folder template? Remember we talked about folder templates, and maybe that default years you added a 2025 folder to some of these accounts. You can apply this folder template automatically, right? This won't message or email your client. This is a system automation that will be done in the background, right? Something like this. So hopefully that answers your question on how to create something from scratch. But that's pretty much what we're doing by editing any template anyway. We're deleting, we're adding, we're renaming. Any of these can be renamed at any time, and these conditions can be managed at any time, right? So I'm going to delete some of these here because I do want to do a quick demo in a little bit. And one of I believe the demo that I advised to download, or if you want to test it out, it has something like new client. And you can do more than one tag, by the way, but this means they absolutely need to have both in order for this engagement letter to be sent. Okay, so that's something that you need to be careful upon. It's a common misconception, and I don't know, Katie, if you've come across this before, but I have a lot of clients that I kind of taught them how to build this out, and then we come back and talk about how they build it out, and they said, well, I want my new clients and the 1040s to receive this engagement letter. But if your whole pipeline is for 1040s, there's no need to add the 1040 tag, if you know what I mean. It's only specific if you need to tailor many client bases into one. So if this whole pipeline is for your individual 1040s, then no need to use tags here. We know that that is. But if you have a corporate tax return pipeline, then no need to use the 1120, 1120S forms, for example, because we know the whole pipeline is for that specific
That
service.
actually kind of depends, because some people do want to send specific emails that say it's an S Corp return or C Corp return or a partnership return. So if you want to do that, you would want to make sure that you have those specific tags included for whatever you want to send, if you're doing things that are different for each type of return.
Perfect. Thank you for that, additional information. This is, again, up to you how you want to tailor this, right? And we're just showing you the very basics of how to do this, because usually all you have to learn is this kind of baseline information so that you can, rocket ship out of here. Really, once you understand this, you're like, oh, now I know what to do. And you can start quickly building out a pipeline, because it's just a matter of understanding how to add the actions and how they work in order for you to find that logic here, right? So I'll show you something that is really neat to do, like this tier sample. It's one of the last examples I'll show you right now. So for example, if I add somebody to stage number 1, they'll get an email. Everybody's going to get the same engagement letter, but they're going to get an email specific to new clients. And if they are a returning client, they're going to get a specific email for returning clients. Okay. So perfect. They're going to get a corresponding email. Now, when they get to the next stage, I have a tier program in my firm, and I have gold, silver, and bronze, right? And each of those needs to sign a specific or fill out a specific organizer, because I have specific, services that I provide for each stage, for each tier. And you can do that by doing this kind of tagging, right? You'd have to make sure that the tag is there before they hit stage number 2, or you can even have this be like stage number 1. The proposal can be for gold, silver, and bronze, right? So this is something that I personally have used with clients that really do use this kind of tier and service providing, because they charge a different amount for each tier. So we want to make sure that they sign the correct engagement letter for each tier. So what you see here can be applied to the proposals as well. You as a firm just need to make sure that they are tagged gold, silver, or bronze, or whatever you want to use in respects to this kind of, tailoring.
One more thing with tags, and this kind of goes with a question that was asked. And this is something I've done, is creating a creating a tag for each one of your employees. So in my case, I would have a tag named Katie. And then when it comes to adding an automation, I can do make the assignee Katie, and I would tag with it the condition with my tag. So the condition would be Katie, and I would have any accounts that were tagged with my name. I would end up being the assignee for those jobs, or I would end up having access to those accounts. So if I was just a team member and not the owner could go through and say, Katie is going to do all of these accounts, tax returns, without giving me actual access until the tax returns are ready to be done. Then they can set up those automations and use my tag to assign me those items.
Yes, there's action items here that you can use to reassign the whole job itself. So for example, here, if it's assigned to Catherine here, no, add Regina, because I have her as a tag, and remove, let's see, We can remove any of these. So if the account has a tag Regina, assign Regina as a job assignee and remove anybody else, right? Or you can do clear existing. Either one is fine. This means that the tasks that are going to be assigned from here moving forward, they're going to belong to Regina, right? So that's something that you can do as well. You can reassign tasks to other team members and reassign the whole job. So let's talk about that now, because I think we do understand just the basics, hopefully, about editing a pipeline, adding stages. We'll always have these plus signs in the middle of how the automation works. It needs to be a trigger to move to the next stage, right? So if I hit save on here, notice that there's a button on the right-hand side called Go to Pipeline. And if you click on edit again, you're in the same view. And if I click on go to pipeline again, I'll come back to that Kanban view, right? So let's go ahead and do this, add a job on here.